Start the ABR meeting for today, which is Monday, October 20th. We'll start with a roll call.
Wolf? Here. Braden?
Here.
Rivera?
Here.
Ozol?
Here.
Gilliland?
Here.
Sherry? Johnson? King?
Here. We're going to go on to item A, which is public comment, any item that is not on today's agenda. And I happen to have a couple speaker slips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6, not in any particular order. So we have 2 minutes. I'll ask you to come up to this front chair, and you can address the board. The first person will be Peter Cruz, followed by Richard Sacco. This is perfect.
Gentleman and lady.
Can you announce your name one
Yes,
more
I
time?
will. I am Peter Cruz. I'm an attorney appearing on my own behalf and a 14-year resident of Santa Barbara, California. I object to the recent actions of the ARB regarding the application of Chick-fil-A. The job of the ARB is to ensure code compliance and compatibility with the master plan. Pointedly, the form of application does not ask for questions about the political or religious views of the applicant, which are not relevant to your job. The facts are, the application was approved 3 months ago, and only minor changes were requested, which do not justify a rejection. The action of the ARB was to vote to disapprove the application. The stated reason for disapproval is based on a statement from applicant's president of his religious belief in the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman, and the unsubstantiated assumption by ARB there is discrimination by applicant in hiring and service to gay customers of applicant. This assumed discrimination is not a fact properly before the ARB and is also untrue. Extensive public objection to the ARB actions have been reported in the press, which have variously characterized its actions as bigoted, actions of thought or moral police, tyranny, anti-business, abuse of power, and intentional blind prejudice, all of which I adopt. ARB has expressed no remorse and offered no apology for its wrong-headed actions. This is a clear violation of law. Even the ACLU agrees that the use of political power to punish the free exercise of religion is unlawful. ARB members should immediately reverse the decision and approve the application and should resign from ARB. Resignation is a time-honored, acceptable form of protest by an individual and does not compromise ARB or the City of Santa Barbara. Absent resignation, the member should immediately be removed and the application approved to restore the professional reputation and honor of city government and to avoid further embarrassment and legal costs which will result from a failure to take corrective action now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Next will be Richard Sacco, and followed by Jim Worthen. And Jim, if you can just get ready, and we'll minimize the time between speakers. And if you can pronounce your name again.
Tip of the iceberg is what I say today.
Your name, please.
My name is Richard Sacco, S-A-C-C-O. I'm a retired pharmacist from Boston, Massachusetts. I've lived in this beautiful city of mine of Santa Barbara for the past 10 years. I'm very proud of it, may I add. I'm also a shopping center developer throughout the United States. The mayor of Boston took a position a few weeks ago when you folks were talking about Chick-fil-A, and now he's facing many issues. He's also become infamous or famous, no matter how way you want to look at it. I want you to pause for a moment and think how serious the decision that you guys and your actions were. Can you imagine if I was filling a prescription and I saw you drive up in a foreign car, and as I looked out, I said, "Oh, Mr. Jones, you're driving a foreign car, and you want me to fill this prescription for heart medication for you? Sorry." Why not? Because you're driving a foreign car. If you see any relevance to that statement, or if you don't, I can be happy to explain it to you. The board should represent my interest and concerns. This group, unfortunately, those of you who participated in this, does not represent my mood or my feelings, and you should be free-spirited and not take... God knows what has gone on prior to this. This is the tip of the iceberg. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Jim Worthen, followed by Barbara Lynch.
I'll try and control my anger.
2 minutes also.
My name is,
Sorry.
I probably can do it quicker. My name is Jim Worthen. I'm a local commercial real estate broker and political commentator on radio and TV. This isn't about Chick-fil-A. This is about the integrity of the city of Santa Barbara. Let me first ask before we waste our time. Are any of you going to resign? Speak now.
We're listening to you.
Okay. If I get stopped by the police and they know that I have publicly criticized and called for the resignation and or replacement of the chief of police, do I have to fear what Chick-fil-A had happened to them from a police officer because he disagrees with my politics? Somebody who wants to bring their boat into our harbor, do they have to fear if it's flying a Christian flag or a pirate flag? When people come before a government agency, the job should only include what the government agency is assigned to do. It's worse. Some of you even commented to the police and to the newspaper and told them why you did it. One of you, I don't know who the idiot was, pardon me, who said he got his information off the internet. I got to tell you, those three people failed their IQ test and don't even have an intelligence to be on the city board.
Thank you. Barbara Lynch, followed by staff. Can we move a chair briefly? Followed by H.T. Bryan. And can we pull that close to you? There we go.
My name is Barbara Lynch, and I'm here to speak on the Chick-fil-A matter as well. In this country, people are free to express their religious and political beliefs, and the government cannot make any laws to abridge that. And I feel that this board has truly failed the city of Santa Barbara. You are on this board are not architects or planners. You are the government. And as a board, the ones who stated their reasons are I'm ashamed of, and the ones who didn't block the board members who stated their reasons and did not vote on this matter but had a city administrator push it through, I'm ashamed of. I think all of you should take serious thought of resigning. And as the gentleman first spoke, do yourself a favor. You do check your politics at the door. You do check all of those beliefs. And all you are to rule on is what is in front of you. If it's landscaping, so be it. If it's where a door goes, so be it. But it is not the political viewpoints of the people who are before you that you are to address or even consider. And I would like for all of you to really consider resigning, because I find that it's a shameful thing that all of you did. Thank you.
Thank you. H.T. Bryan, followed by Bill Mahan. Perfect.
My name is H.T. Bryan. I'm also known as Tom Bryan. I'm a 25-year resident of Santa Barbara. And I want to tell you, I thought I'd seen it all. But I haven't. I'm embarrassed to be a Santa Barbaran.
I didn't have it on. Oops.
The most important thing this board has is its reputation and its credibility. This board has lost its reputation and credibility as to competency, objectivity, fairness, and understanding their duties because of the acts of the board members here. Now, political correctness, political and social beliefs, religious beliefs, personal opinions have no relevancy to the board's responsibilities and their decisions. Those board members who feel at this time or do not understand this, it must resign now. The board's reputation and credibility must be restored as well as the city's. Now, those of you who didn't go through the tyrannies of going through Catholic school, I will just say, dictum sapienti sati esti. A word to the wise is sufficient.
Thank you. Bill Mahan, followed by Don Sharp, who's our last speaker slip, unless there's any more.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think most of you know that I've sat behind the board where you are now, and one of the things that I learned was to say it's acceptable or it is not acceptable, and here's why it isn't. So in your dealings with Chick-fil-A, in my opinion, what you did was not acceptable, and here's why it's not acceptable. Because these political, religious, social, sexual issues are not relevant to design review. Now, there's a saying in the military that you salute the rank and not the person. And in design review, you review the application, but not the applicant. I think we've all heard today that the community is upset. I've talked to a majority of city council people and many of my architectural colleagues, and we're very, very disappointed, and we find it regrettable. I think that it's important for you to do something to fix this matter. And we've watched Governor Romney and his tax returns, and we've learned that if you have a problem and you don't fix it, it doesn't go away. And this is not going to go away. You need to fix it. And I don't know how you're going to do that, but I think you need to get together and figure out how you're going to fix it. It's important for the ABR, for the prestige of the ABR. So I sincerely wish you the wisdom and the courage to do what is right on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. The last speaker will be Don Sharp.
My name is Don Sharp, and while I'm a member of the HLC, I'm not here representing that group, but merely speaking for myself. And I agree with everything Mr. Mahan just said, and I won't repeat it. I will say, however, that during my 26-plus years on HLC and landmarks, I've never encountered a vote for a consent item that was other than a yes or no to ratify that item. You don't have a situation where you have a choice. You can't say you were not at the prior meeting because it's already been reviewed, and you merely say, yes, I ratify the consent calendar, or I don't. And this did not happen in this case, and I feel very bad about the fact that it all happened, but here we are. Thank you.
Thank you. And there are no other speaker slips, so I'll close public comment and move on to item B of the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of the Architectural Board review of August 6th. Do we have a first and a second for that, for the minutes? First by Keith, second by Kurt. Going through the minutes, are there any comments or alterations to the minutes, starting with anything before item 1? Item 1?
Sorry.
Oops.
Mr. Chair, I have a statement to read, and it was recommended that I do it during announcements, but I would take your lead on when that may occur.
Let me check with staff. Are you aware of this? Or is timing? Now is fine?
No, okay.
Then let's table the review of the minutes, which is, and let's go back to an announcements.
Okay. Thank you. Fellow board members and general public, my decision to recuse myself from voting on the Chick-fil-A project on the 23rd of July and abstain on the 6th of August was made in an effort to avoid having my personal feelings get in the way of allowing the applicant an unbiased project review, which they are entitled to receive. The ABR recently received additional ethics training, and during that meeting, it was made very clear to all of us on the board that avoiding conflicts of interest are paramount to retain the integrity of the design review process. We were told that if there is a potential conflict of interest, or even the appearance of a conflict for financial or personal reasons, it is best to err on the side of caution and recuse oneself from that particular item. So I did. Since that time, the city attorney has addressed the issue and further clarified for all the city boards and commissions what actually constitutes a conflict of interest, as there was still some confusion prior. At this point, I believe the situation has been rectified. This was a one-time occurrence and will not happen again. It is unfortunate that my actions have brought so much scrutiny toward the ABR and pressure on the city council, and for that I apologize. But I feel as though I was following the ethics training I had received up to that point. I in no way intend to bring discredit to the review process or the city council by my actions. And I would like to put this behind me now and continue to serve the city and the people of Santa Barbara until my term expires at the end of the year. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else who wants to do a comment of similar nature? Nope. Oops.
I would like to address my reasons for my abstention to the public, for the public record, since I didn't in the meeting. Unfortunately, Paul was the one board member who was absent and who had reviewed that project with landscaping and architectural changes. However, our landscape architect, of which we only have one, did not review it, and apparently there were landscape changes, and so that's why I felt I couldn't approve that. So had you been there, I could have asked you, Paul, because you had seen it, but you weren't, so that was the reason for my abstention. And I apologize that it happened, to be that all of us abstained at the same time, but that's just the way it happened.
Okay.
Because my abstention also had nothing to do with the applicant, with the views of the applicant, with any recent history regarding the applicant. It was an abstention based on the fact that I had been absent on the day that that project has been reviewed. And despite what Mr. Sharp said in his comments, I did check with Betty Weiss afterwards in a shared email that went to all the city council members as well as the city attorney, verifying this point that it was a standard procedure for a person who is not present to abstain. And she confirmed that that was the case. So just wanted to clarify my position on that.
Okay. If that is all, we'll go back to the minutes, review of the minutes. Does staff have anything to add? All right. We're back onto item B, which is the review of the minutes from Monday, August 6th. So we are on any items or corrections before item 1? If not, item 1. Item 2. Item 3. And item 4. Hearing that there are no corrections or alterations to the minutes take a vote for approving the minutes as submitted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain because I was gone. Moving on to the consent agenda for August 13th. Can I have a first and a second for the consent?
I'll make that motion.
First by Keith.
Second.
Second by Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, Consent calendar, August 13th, we had item A, 302 Meigs Road, got a project design approval and final approval with conditions. Item B, 301 South Hope Avenue was continued 1 week. Item C, 740 Miramonte Drive was postponed 1 week. Item D, 1198 Coast Village Road, got a final approval with a condition. Item E, 500 Fowler Road, a review after final for the details of that generator screening at the airport terminal was approved with a condition. Item F, 825 Delavina Street was approved as submitted. Item G, 2912 Delavina Street, got a project design approval and final approval with conditions. Item H, 2550 Treasure Drive, got a final approval as submitted. Item I, 409 Oria Del Mar Drive, the review after final was approved as submitted, and consent last week was reviewed by Keith Rivera and Chris Gilliland.
Okay. Any comments to the consent agenda? I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're now going to move on to the consent calendar for today, August 20th. Can I have a first and a second? First by Gary, second by Chris.
All right, consent calendar today, we had item A, 100 Barranca Avenue. Review after final was approved as submitted. Item B, 301 South Hope Avenue was continued 1 week. Item C, 423 West Victoria Street, got a project design approval and final approval as submitted. Item D, 224 South Milpas Street was continued indefinitely. Item E, 121 Gray Avenue was postponed 1 week at the applicant's request. Item F, 740 Miramonte Drive, got a project design approval and final approval with condition. Item G, 735 West Mitchell-Torena Street, got a final approval as submitted. And consent today was reviewed by Chris Gilliland and Keith Rivera.
Okay. Any discussions or comments on today's consent? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item D, which is announcements. Requests by applicants for continuance and withdrawals. Is there any announcements?
Well, back regarding the consent calendar, on July 23rd, Paul Zink reviewed that Chick-fil-A review after final, and then it came back for ratification August 13th. And after that, staff just gave that review after final a staff approval. It was within staff purview to review a minor item like that. So we didn't want to bring it back here again and ask you all to vote on that ratification again. So that just received a staff approval. So other announcements, Don Sherry is absent today, and Chris Gilliland will be stepping down from item 2. And item 3, 1255 Coast Village Road, the applicant has to be postponed 2 weeks, so that won't be on today's agenda.
So if I can ask a question, the new item, which is item 4, which is 334 Mission, because it's a new item, what time can we start it? Is it 15 minutes before?
Our policy, yes, has been that we can begin 15 minutes before the scheduled time, because that's when, at the beginning of the meeting agenda,
so that would be at 4:05 at the
arrive.
earliest. 15 minutes. I'm sorry, I did my math wrong. 10:25. Okay.
And one more announcement. It's sort of like a segue into the subcommittee reports. Dan Gullett requested that we ask for another ABR member to join the Highway 101 design review team. Chris Manson-Hing was part of that team. Chris Gilliland is still a member of that. They will be coming back, or they're proposing 2 members of this Highway 1 design review team to review proposed median landscaping upgrades for an area. He's attached a map. It's basically from Garden Street west past like State Street. They're making some median improvements there.
Mr. Chair, I actually sat in on a meeting with, I believe Dan was there, and also Phil from the HLC, and we reviewed that median planting, and it sounded to me like they didn't feel that it was necessary to bring it to the full review team because we were the landscapers, but maybe there's been a new development, so maybe just double check.
Let's see. So Dan is asking for another ABR member. He said it would be best to have another landscaping expert, but we don't have any. And he says next year he expects this design review team to begin looking at the new high occupancy vehicle project, which will be a major time commitment. But for now, he expects 1, maybe 2 meetings for this proposed medium improvements.
Does anyone feel an inkling to jump in real fast? If not, you can put my name down as a tentative, but when the time comes, we can ask the board one more time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Is that all?
That's all I have.
All righty. Going on to item E, which is subcommittee reports, which was semi that. Anything else? Okay. Can you pass that down to staff? We're going to start with item 1, which is 1165 Coast Village Road. It is a new item, so I will read the project description. This is a proposal for a tenant improvement for Chase Bank. Exterior alterations consists of filling in the upper part of an arch on the front facade to allow for a proposed wall sign. A new automatic teller machine is proposed to be installed in the front window within the arch. Is that applicant here? Come on down. We all learn how to do this job slightly different, so.
Yes.
But if I can have you in the middle and keep the drawing within this little square so the TV camera upstairs can get it. And all the drawings, unfortunately, have to face me and not you.
That's good.
And if, oops, let's go with the full size. And then I'll also have you announce your name for the record.
So I am Jorge Saeli. I'm with Gensler Architects, and we are the architects of record for Chase Bank.
Before you leave, can you get a business card to the gal who types the minutes?
Sure, yeah.
Otherwise, she'll ask me.
Okay. Yeah, that's an extra set for you.
Oh,
And
okay.
I have another one.
So briefly, let's go through the site photos just so people can get their bearings straight.
So basically, this is the surrounding area.
These are surrounding photographs of surrounding areas.
photographs,
Okay.
yeah. This is the facade, it's the existing facade of the existing space. That's the space that
Okay.
the bank wants to occupy. It was previously also a financial institution, so basically it's located in the upper level of the existing shopping center. There is pedestrian access to the main entrance, and then this is the main facade. So basically the application is to introduce a walk-up ATM. Our new banking centers, they have walk-up ATM that is at the main facade. So the idea is to introduce that new ATM at the existing storefront system. That's the number one item for the application. And the second item for the application is the current facade doesn't have really any space for the proposed sign, the Chase sign. So what we are proposing is there is a storefront system. So the upper portion of the arch, we are proposing to fill this in with the stucco, so we can provide a new area for the Chase sign, 12 inches Chase sign. That will be basically planted on over that stucco. So the arch will be kept, but we'll have a new stucco area. And the idea is to match the same color that we have for the existing mosaic that is below the window area.
Just for the board's benefit, we're not here to discuss the sign or the letters, or
No.
the
Yeah.
height of the letters, or the color of the letters.
Exactly.
We're
It's just the space.
We're just the architecture. So if we can go to the elevation.
Yeah, so this is the plan that shows the existing space that is empty, vacant, and this is the area where we are
Okay.
proposing And this is the floor plan that shows the location of the new walk-up ATM through the storefront system.
Okay.
And these are the black and white elevations that show, this elevation here shows the existing condition, which is basically a pair of man door to access the existing space with the storefront system and an arch. And this upper drawing shows the proposed condition, which is basically a walk-up ATM, and we keep the arch with a new infill for to give backup for the new proposed future sign.
Perfect.
And yeah, that's it.
That's it. Anything else you want to add? It's a complete...
No, we are here to work with the city. We are really happy that we can establish a good relationship with the city. And,
Great.
The staff have been really helpful to this point.
So I'm going, stay put, I'm going to open up public comment on this item, item 1, which is on Coast Village Road. Seeing no public, I'll return it back to the board for questions of the applicant. Do any board members have any questions?
Sure.
Yes, Kirk.
So you say you're keeping the arch, and but you're going to infill with plaster. Is that plaster, that new plaster surface, is it going to be flush with the window surface?
It's going to be exactly the same level as the storefront system. So you're going to have that feeling of the arch still.
Questions from anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes, Stephanie.
What is the material of the span between the arch
That
and
is
the
going to be the
plaster?
same material as the storefront system. So it could be aluminum as the existing storefront system, or if the city and the staff want to introduce something that provides shades and that is going to project from the storefront system, we can do that too. So that's why we left that like open with a different color. But ideally, it will be the same material as the storefront system. We just didn't want to change a lot of things in the facade because we know that this is all the entire design intent is for the shopping center, so we don't want to change that too a lot.
Quick question. On your proposed north elevation, it says option 2. Is there another option, or is it just one?
There was another option before that we were discussing. That's why that's a carry-on that we had.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I'm going to jump in with a question having to do with the color that's kind of semi-terracotta. Is that what you're proposing? I missed that in the presentation.
Yeah, that color is to match the existing tile that we have below the window at the wainscot. So in one of the options we had was to have a similar tile, but actually this is this is a material that is really difficult to get the same product. So we went with the option with matching the color.
So it's going to be plaster matching the color of the existing tile that it's in.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Questions from other board members?
Mr. Chair?
Gary.
The proposed ATM machine that you are going to install, is there any lighting fixtures on that, as well as the deposit?
Yeah, there are two things on the ATMs. The first one is it has a surround that has a blue, and sometimes we have the option to have a blue light in there. And the second thing is, per financial code regulations, we are required to maintain minimum foot candles around the machine. So there is probably going to be an additional light fixture on top of that machine, so it's safe for the public.
At this point, you don't have that fixture shown or what it's going to look like?
No. We don't have it. It could be that we install it just below the arch, so it doesn't look like you have a big light fixture in front of you, or it might be that we have to have an extra pole or light on in front of the building, because basically you have to wash all the face of the ATM, so you have more increased foot candles at the face of the ATM, and then as it goes around, like farther, it's gonna just drop.
Okay. Great questions.
Additionally, will there be any any additional cameras or anything else that you're proposing on this project?
We usually have the cameras in the ATM, so yeah, that's all the security that you have usually for the banks. That's what you're going to get.
Are there any other questions? And if not, we can jump to comments.
One last question. Wondering what the difference, how far recessed is that interior?
In the pictures, we can see that we have like I think it's probably like a foot and a half.
About 12 inches.
Yes, and I was wondering if it's possible to push, if you need that extra light, to have a recessed into that archway.
That light,
Yeah.
we could look at that option. Yeah, so you don't see that light from the front.
Right.
Maybe we can have something from
Downlight.
washing from above.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All righty. Let's go on to comments. I'm sorry, staff has a comment. We'll go with you.
Staff has a few comments. We scheduled this for full board review because of a concern about altering the architecture of the front facade of this building. And this is not a sign application, but we asked the applicant to inform you about what they're planning to do with signs. The ABR has some purview over signs to the extent that if a sign application is appealed, the ABR would hear the appeal. So the ABR has sort of an oversight authority over the sign committee. And in the sign ordinance, one of the types of prohibited signs are signs that interrupt, signs which cover or interrupt architectural features. So we're asking you to consider that with regard to the ATM. And ATMs are a little bit unusual where they get a dual review. The ATM itself comes to the ABR, typically on consent calendar, and the surround and the signage associated with the ATM goes to the sign committee. So we just wanted to let you know about that.
Go ahead.
Stephanie, and then we'll go to Kirk. You may. We'll go back to questions. Yeah, questions.
Would it be problematic to move that ATM machine to the side?
Can you hit your mic button? Thanks.
We're working plan to do that.
I mean, we can consider that. There are a couple of reasons why you have it at the front. The first one is security. You want to be sure that when the police patrols the area, they can see who is at the face of the ATM. The second one will be to see really what is in the program with the landlord, because if we move it to the side, I just see that we will be on an area that is more for circulation to the shopping center. So that's why those are the two main reasons why we didn't do it to the side.
And one more question. On the landlord, he doesn't have a problem with projections from this building? You were talking about some sort of projection up in that spandrel area?
Yeah, not really. I mean, that was just a proposed projection that, I mean, we really are not showing exactly in the elevations, but the landlord already signed off on this design.
Okay.
So,
Kirk, you had a couple of...
Well, I just, while I was waiting, I think I answered my own question, but this is the one photograph we have that shows the rest of the building.
Can you put it right here in the center?
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to see that.
Item 4, where my finger is. If you can, or item 2, I'm sorry.
It would have been nice to have it, full-size image like this of that, so that we could see the composition of the building as a whole, because really it's working together with the other parts of the building. But that was my question. I was just wondering if you had more images of that.
Of the shopping center.
Yeah.
I certainly do, but I don't have it.
Right. Right. Okay.
Well, let's jump to comments. Who wants to jump in first?
I'll go ahead and speak on it. I just recently had the opportunity to look at the remodel of a building on State Street that had a number of larger arched openings like this on it, and the ones that were the most successful and that you see repeated in the traditional buildings along State Street have either glass full height or there's a canopy, there's glass that goes up, or there's a canopy within the arch. There's a few that are filled in because of a second story or some element on the interior that prevents that upper part of the arch from being open. But in those cases, it looks out of place. And I think given that you have a traditional styled building here that's has this very important facade that faces Coast Village Road, I think I would be against filling it in. And it seems to me that there's multiple opportunities on the building for placing the sign elsewhere. So those are my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Comments from other board member?
Okay. I would agree with Kirk on the not really being in favor of the filling in of that space above. However, I am intrigued with your comment on some sort of a projection or a canopy or cantilevering straight out from that arch. That could help that, in my opinion, a lot, and could be a really nice feature. But I don't see it in this presentation at all, and I don't think that there's enough of a recess. I think it would just give it a lot of depth to that opening, and what you have now is a pretty slim recess in Santa Barbara standards. Usually, big storefronts are 18 to 24 inches deep, and this is only 12, if that. And I think that some sort of projecting canopy out from that spandrel area that you suggested could be a better alternative. And that's it.
I think, in my mind, the infill up above would be more acceptable if it was the tile. And I know that you mentioned that you couldn't match the tile that would remain down below. But perhaps, since the area below is a fairly small area, maybe if that was changed out so that it all matched. And that is a fairly common detail you'll see around town, is that there is a recessed tile in an archway above kind of the flat storefront line. So in my mind, I think what you're proposing could be acceptable if it was tile that worked with the rest of the colors and materials in the building, but related to that kind of detail. So.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't think that the tile or the infill is, I have an objection to that, except I don't really see a profile of it. And looking at the floor plans and seeing the dimension of the walls, I don't feel like you have enough depth to pull this off of this archway. I think it's going to really look flat, and it's not going to be one of those infills that's recessed. It looks to me like it's only going to be a number of inches, maybe 2 inches or something of recess between the plaster and that. And I don't think that's enough shadow line to pull off what you're looking for. And then you're going to put a sign in front of it, and the sign's actually going to stand proud of the plaster. It will end up being farther out than the plaster, and it's going to take away from the look of that being an alcove. So I'm kind of having some problems with that. I also want to make sure that the ATM machines do not have a blue glow to it or some lights to it. I think that is something that the sign committee will hit up on, but I don't think that's something we're looking forward to.
Thank you.
I also wanted to talk about, I'm not done. Easy, Paul. There's 2 deposit boxes. Both of them are on each side of the office. One of them is for packages. Is that a mailbox or what is that?
Yeah, those are after-hour depository.
Both of them are after-hour depository?
Yeah, basically. So yeah, that's part of the operation of the bank.
It's kind of unfortunate that you have them flanking on both sides. Is there any location for those that would be a better wouldn't be so?
Well, we can explore maybe to have some of them at the side, and we could probably switch these so you have one of these at this side. But that's something that we really, really we cannot use this side because there is no pedestrian area.
Right.
But there is some pedestrian access here that we could utilize.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would look to see that, seeing how that is the street presence. Okay, that's it.
I'll just chime in with just the lesson that we got today about whether it's acceptable or whether it's not acceptable. And what I see in front of us, what's being presented is not acceptable because we're taking a building and we're making it weaker. We're making it less beautiful, and you have an opportunity to take this building and add more charm to it. So I'm going to encourage you to take this building and what you're wanting to do with it for your clients' needs and make it more Santa Barbara. And how you're going about it, there's oodles of ways. You heard a couple here, plus you can look at some other ones, but what we see today isn't reaching that mark, and I think it would be it'll be a mistake when we drive by it later and go, ooh. So you've got your work cut out for you, but it's not impossible because you're a good design firm. But architecturally, we need something that sings here.
Yeah. Now, I have a question for the board and specifically for planning. Like, we are not discussing today's signs because that's under a separate review.
Correct.
But basically, the entire intent is to give some area for the sign, which, really, in our space, we don't have a lot of opportunity. My question is, if we are not to, what I hear as a consensus is that if we are to provide an infill, it's going to be fighting with the design intent of the building and the design guidelines for the city. And if we are to do it, then we'll have to do probably something way better. Okay, so if we go with the route of not doing an infill, is there an opportunity to create a sign with the storefront system that we have? In other words, can we place a sign in front of that storefront system, like a floating element with like a laser cut chase sign in there?
Like little individual letters that are on that rail?
Yeah.
That sounds like it would be a reasonable
that would be more clean. We are not going to change the design of the existing building. So we will not be playing with it. It's an existing shopping center, so when you introduce something new, it's going to be really difficult to have the same language, So if you get with a better sign that is placed with the existing design, is that something that the board will look better? Or?
From the perspective that I'm coming from as a designer, I see you altering the whole front design where maybe you can do an archway system here and you do your ATM over to here and not try to merge the two together because you're fighting one another in the colors and all the lighting requirements here. But that requires redoing your whole facade, which is a bigger program. And that's why your job is, if you're just looking for signage and throwing the ATM in here, it still has to look like it belongs in town.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, that's good.
Mr. Chair, may I also comment?
Yes.
I'm not on the sign committee, so you can take this with a grain of salt.
We're not.
Just architecturally, I would prefer if the sign wasn't on the building. And it looks to me like there is opportunity there with the site that you could do a pedestal sign.
I see.
As opposed to something placed on the building. Suggestion.
Okay. So let's wrap this up with some directions and comment either return to full board or return to consent. And okay, you go.
Okay. I'll make a motion. Well, I guess it's up to the board whether they feel like they want to see it again. But my view is I would like to see it again.
You're the maker of the motion.
If you are going to alter the architecture, then yes, would like to see it again at the full board. And that could either be 2 weeks or indefinite continuance. So it's really your choice.
Okay.
Which one? You have to choose now. 2 weeks, okay. And please don't wave at me, Paul.
I'm sorry, I'm just...
That most of the board members do not feel that infilling the window area above the at the arch is architecturally appropriate, and and also suggest some board members feel that other locations for the sign, even though that's not technically part of this proposal, should be investigated.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then also that the at least one of the drop boxes be relocated so that it's not so visible from the street.
Great, thank you. Is there someone who wants to second that motion? Second by Stephanie. Is there any other additional comments someone wants to request be added? I have one in that the applicant can address the security lighting that's required by the federal rules in the next presentation, so we can see what the fixture looks like and whether it's going to be a recessed one or whether it's going to be a surface-mounted one.
I can bring also photometrics. Yeah.
That would be perfect. We just need to see that fixture and how it's going to work with the architecture.
Okay.
Is that okay with the seconder? Perfect. Any other comments? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are on to item 2, which is a new item as well. This is 528 Anacapa Street. It is a proposal for a 3,000 square foot one-story addition to an existing 3,218 square foot one-story commercial building. The driveway cut from Coda Street and the trash enclosure would be relocated. The parking lot would be reconfigured, and the parking reduced to 15 parking spaces. Development plan approval by the ABR is requested for a 3,000 square foot of new commercial square footage. If I have your name.
Clay, excuse me, Clay Rowe with AB Design Studio. And next to me is Eric Bear from AB Design Studio, and my client representative, Katie Hay. And should have third set. That's probably the color set. Just, I've got a. I know that you guys love it when you do this, but
I think they're all black and white. So
are they all
colored images?
Okay. I've got a couple of site plans here to switch out because we met recently with engineering and traffic, and they've asked us to relocate the driveway. So
Start with some site photos and some context.
sure. Tony, can you bring that other set? We still need a set in the middle. Thank you, sir. Let's see. We are on the corner of Anacapa and Coda. This is the French press, which you recently reviewed and approved exterior alterations that are reflected in our set of drawings as well. Our proposal is to add 3,000 square feet of commercial space onto the building in this location. Just a little refresher for you all. One topic of discussion is going to be these trees. Here's the building as it is today. It's currently under construction with the improvements that were previously approved. New storefront here. There's a metal awning wrapping the corner. It's sort of an old 60s building. They're going to be doing new glass garage doors in here and whatnot. And our proposal is actually going to be on the end there. Here's a couple more shots from the parking lot. Here's the garage doors. Here. There's from across the street. This is from the corner by the Lions building. We can pass these around. This is primarily where we're adding the 3,000 square foot structure. Again, across the street. This will be actually a topic of discussion why I brought different site plans in. This as well. Here's a sidewalk. This is the street tree that we're proposing to be removed as requested by engineering and traffic because it pretty much leans over. That would be not allowed for projections under ADA, so the thing leans way over and restricts the street. This is the adjacent property next door, which is fenced in with a bunch of old buses on Coda Street, and this is the adjacent property to the south along Anacapa. This is across the street from this building, the old Paul Mitchell. This is across the street. Let's see. This is Coda and Anacapa car wash. Here's a Lion building that has this big warehouse here, and here's Antioch across the street. So that's a little bit of the context.
Perfect.
I'm gonna come back to the site plan real quick to kind of talk about why we brought separate plans in. If I can find those photos. Initially, we were planning to put the driveway more or less in this location, and when we met with transportation the other day, they would prefer to have this as close as possible to the driveway across the street, and he was really concerned about this tree that you see here. And so our proposal would be to close off this driveway, add a new driveway here. We would be removing this street tree and potentially relocating this palm tree, which is really hard to see. Where is it? There it is. It's right up against this tree here.
Here you go.
So it's it's probably not in a really good spot. Shoved up right against that other tree. So we'd be removing that so that we could get our driveway in here, and then we'd reorganize the parking and come out that side. So I'm going to use those. This is our existing site plan, which shows the improvements that they're finishing. Our proposed site plan would show this being closed off, new driveway entrance, restriping this area here, restriping this area here. We're providing bicycle parking in this location and trash enclosure here. And this is, again, that's all been previously approved. Here's the addition of our 3,000 square foot addition. We're using some of the similar elements that was already approved because we think it makes sense. I'll kind of jump to the previous site plans. So here's more or less a floor plan of what we're proposing. We're proposing sort of a corner glazing system similar to what's on this building here. Some roll-up doors similar to that. Really trying to carry that language through the building. I'll show you, get into the elevations. Did I skip one? So this here is what the French press is doing. That is what was approved. We're actually proposing to remove this large eave overhang on the front of this building because it, to us, seems out of place when we add on something here. This is the Coda Street elevation that you would see. There'd be a little patio out front, potentially, depending on what tenant might go in there. Just a simple breakup of the storefront, similar to what is already on the building. Again, this is the return, facing the parking lot. We're getting this building up a little higher so we can get some clear story windows in over the back, because the back portion, this is pretty much dark and dead space. And we're also got our parapets up so we can hide a mechanical on the roof. And this is the
This is the existing
that's
French press.
this elevation of that building. So it's it's that elevation that we're not showing in this location. That's pretty much it in terms of the basic mass of the building. Finishes were really going to mimic what was done already. This building is kind of an old brick, long brick, and they're painting it white. We're looking at doing probably a CMU for structure. We considered keeping it raw, and I'm sure you guys will have some comments about that. But that's more or less it.
Thank you. With that, I will open up public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll return it back to staff. Does staff have any comments on this project? All right. Back to the board for questions of the applicant.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Oops.
I remembered one thing. I think it says on the agenda that environmental assessment still requires environmental assessment. I didn't hear if you mentioned it or not, but transportation planning asks for a traffic impact study for their review of the development plan approval for the requested square footage.
Can I ask you a question? It says development plan approval by the ABR is requested. Is that something we typically do, and what does that entail?
Yes, up to 3,000 square feet, new commercial square footage gets approved by the ABR. Above 3,000 square feet, it would go to the Planning Commission.
And is there a magic checklist of things that we're supposed to make sure that findings?
Yes, we have findings. I can find those for you.
Perfect.
And I think one of the findings is no impact to traffic, which we have transportation planning look at.
So we're not ready at this point to make that determination, so we don't need the findings today?
Let me get those for you,
Okay,
so you
perfect.
can consider that.
Thank you. Kirk.
Do you have a site plan that shows the existing footprints of the adjacent parcels?
There's no building over here.
It's the bus lot.
This is actually just a lot with buses on it, and actually wraps around to about right around here. And then there's a building on this property line that's really not shown, but it's the building in the photos. It's a tall brick building. It's actually considerably taller than this. You can see it back here.
Actually, that one too.
Yeah, so here's the building adjacent to us. I think it's about probably 25 feet tall or something like that.
So the bus lot parcel is there is a building on that parcel. It's just not adjacent to the site.
There's no building on this parcel at all. Sorry. There's no building on this parcel. There's a building on, as you're going down Anacapa, there's a building right here.
Okay.
And if I may, Paul?
Yeah.
It's probably...
Yeah, I got that. I was just wondering if there was potential for development on the adjacent site to the.
There is potential
east.
for development on that site. Yeah.
Questions from other members?
Mr. Chair.
Keith.
Might be a question for staff, Tony. The row of parking adjacent to the building, there's 8 spaces. Would that require a tree planter to break that up? Is it every 7, I believe?
It's every 8. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, that still applies to a row of parking
So it is
spaces.
every 7?
Mm-hmm. It's every, you go 8 spaces and then a finger and then 8 and a finger.
That's the question I'm asking.
Okay.
Let me look it up.
Okay.
I'll let you-
Okay.
That's what I remember.
Okay.
Another question, Mr. Chair.
Kirk.
I know from recent commercial work that you've got to have a path of travel from the building to the trash location. I don't think you're allowed to go off the property to do it, but
Oh, yeah. we
that's
can
your
do that.
solution?
We
Yep.
can- yeah, we can do
Okay.
that.
Okay.
We're doing that on a couple projects right now where you go to the sidewalk and as long as you can get to it.
Okay.
I actually had a question. You're choosing to remove the awning overhang over here, and I was just wondering what the reason was. And then over here, over these roll-ups, there seems to be a high amount of exterior wall, and you have the clear story. So twofold. Did you ever entertain the idea of wrapping around the overhang, or did you ever entertain the idea of adding clear story into this mass?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we looked at this before. Actually, we were looking at a couple different ways to deal with this piece, but it didn't seem to fit in with really the architecture of the building, and even wrapping it around didn't appear like it was working very well. We'd be interested in entertaining, maybe additional clear story or something above there, if you felt that was a comment. But we were just trying to keep the same rhythm of openings as we turn that inside corner.
Okay.
We are. It's something that we're looking at right now and trying to, maybe another awning system or something like that along there. It does get, Antioch's here, and there's a couple big buildings, so it does get a little bit shaded from the surroundings, but it's something that we're studying in terms of light and sun and how that impacts it.
Okay. If no one has any other questions, I want to go back to the landscape question having to do about losing a street tree, and are you planning on replacing it? I forgot the answer. There was one.
There wasn't an answer.
Okay. We're losing one that was in the parkway or right here by the edge of the curb.
Correct.
Is there an opportunity to add one in this zone somewhere?
I think that there's an opportunity to add one. There was a picture of this particular tree that's called out for this street is tearing up the sidewalk, and it's probably not an ideal street tree, but it is nonetheless a street tree designation. So.
And the palm tree, where was that going to be relocated?
It's right here.
We were thinking potentially over here. Again, we haven't really gotten into landscaping yet at all. We're just really here for first pass concept, but it's definitely something we'll be studying.
If there's no other questions, let's go to comments and then wrap it up with a wrap it up.
I think the basic organization makes sense, and the one-story mass is definitely acceptable. I think the basic idea of this linear form that's kind of punctuated at each end makes sense to integrate the new with the existing architecture. I'm a little concerned about the finish of the new masonry and tying that in with the existing building. So if the existing is going to remain painted, tying it in color-wise, whatever. Also, particularly since the trash enclosure is out on the street, too, maybe rethinking the material there or its treatment to give it more scale and texture right at the pedestrian level. Yeah, I agree. If you could add another street tree in front of the new wing, that would be beneficial, one that's not going to end up with the same problem that you have with the current one. And then the only other comment is tag on to Paul's question on the new roll-ups, the vertical proportion, maybe study that, and even though it would be different.
I think those could go a little bit higher because it's a higher bay. And
the masses are different heights, and it may make sense, but I think right now the proportions looking kind of squat. Yeah. Anyway, those are my comments.
Stephanie?
I'm not quite sure I follow what Keith just said.
Let's go to the elevation sheet real
But
fast.
I'm looking at the elevations in that I really like the way the two buildings tie in with the French press frontage, but I don't think it has to mimic it quite so exactly in order to get your your canopy. I'm really, it's a shame that you have to lose this canopy and this overhang, because it does provide nice deep shade to this parking lot, as I've experienced it in the past. And if this could be brought up so that it wraps, and this whole elevation got bigger, it wouldn't be the end of the world. For me, they don't have to be so matchy-matchy, perfectly matchy. I'm just trying to get some relief from the flatness of these two facades in the corner, in the interior corner, and over the garage doors. That's it. And one more comment about the more landscaping you can provide, the better, even if that means making your trash enclosures slightly smaller, like you have extra foot, you could give back to landscaping wherever possible.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you. Either one of you?
Yeah, I think Keith made some good comments about the doors probably increasing in height or something. I think that would be good. I actually like the idea that the corners.
I actually like the corners, the design mimicking the other one. I think that's a good call on it, and it makes sense to me as well. What I don't find particularly pleasing is the starkness of the elevation. South elevation that is facing the empty lot right now. It's lacking in complete character and design, and I understand that it's built. I understand that it's built on a. Well, then I'm sorry, not
You mean the east?
east elevation.
East, because that's facing the bus barn.
This faces the bus lot.
This one faces the existing building, then? This is the existing portion?
Correct.
Yeah. So the east one, that's facing the existing bus parking lot, or bus boneyard. I think that could use some adornment. Some further study should be done for the landscaping. I see indicated on the plans that there's some pavement there. I don't know what kind of paving or something in the front of the new
Number 5?
number 5. No, towards Dakota Street right there. I see that is paving, and I think that would be something that we would want to see some landscaping there rather than paving. Right up to the street like that, and I think Paul mentioned about moving a street tree, and I think a street tree should be relocated into one of those spots there. Perhaps, I don't know if it needs to be that paper bark tree or something, but we should have some sort of street tree there. And as far as the height goes in the building, I think it's acceptable. I think the site locations are very nice. I think all in all, it's a good addition to that corner. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Kurt, and then I'm going to jump to Tony.
Sure. I agree with Gary's comments about the landscaping at the street. I think that's important. That'll be an important element. I wonder about the feasibility of relocating that very large palm. We heard we had another applicant recently, a landscape architect, saying that when they get to a certain height, it's a very iffy prospect of being able to do that. So I encourage you to look into that some more, whether that's really an option. I'm not sure about the canopy removal. I can see why you've taken it out in order to because it seems like a foreign element to now this very linear contemporary design that you have, but I think it actually, it helps to break up what would otherwise is going to be a very, very linear, unshaded facade, except for the canopies that you have at the corners. So I'm thinking that maybe that's not such a great idea as to take that existing overhang out. And maybe there's a way to remodel it to give it some more character or improve its appearance. I think that that another location for the trash enclosure should be found, one that's not at the street, just because then it becomes part of the design character of the street. Why not have it recessed back into one of the other parking spaces along the building, adjacent to the building, as opposed to pushing it out towards the public? I also feel like the exposed block is not a good finished solution or painted block. Especially since the brick, which has a lot more character than the concrete block, is, I'm not asking you to match that, but I think both in blending with what is there on the site and also what's immediately across the street, that plaster would be a much better option and still would go really nicely with the design that you're proposing. I think the comments about the garage door height, I kind of feel like they all should match in height. If the design in width and in treatment is the same, I think the height should match. So I'm not in favor of raising those. Those are my comments.
Mr. Tony, do you have some findings to go over?
When the ABR is asked to make development plan approval findings, staff prepares a memo. So we will do that before your next review of this project.
Perfect.
Basically, you're looking at is the project compatible with the neighborhood aesthetically and size, bulk, and scale. But we'll prepare that memo for you.
Okay.
And you had a question about the interior planters. The parking lot landscaping standards say there shall be an interior planter. There should not be more than 8 parking spaces without an intervening interior planter.
Well, the only comment I'm going to make is that you have opportunities here to play with this, to make it fun, and the way I see it, or not the way I see it, there's opportunity of making this taller, and there's oodles of ways, or keeping the awning or something, but what's here is not quite right, but you come back with something and it'll be fine. I mean, it'll be fine. We'll study what you have as your next proposal, but people have different solutions. And, but this corner needs attention. Other than that, it's a great project. Looking good.
Okay. Didn't make a motion, right?
We did not make a motion. We didn't do our checklist. Someone want to go through and either going to look at Kurt or Keith, because both of you took diligent notes.
If you prefer like a 2-week continuance, or
I don't think it makes sense to come back until we've got our traffic study wrapped up and our environmental complete.
okay, so this would be indefinite continuance back to full board after you've taken care of those planning items. So with the following comments, overall the board finds the project's mass, bulk, and scale and site plan organization acceptable, with the exception of the trash enclosure. Applicants to study alternative locations for the trash enclosure. Regarding the landscape, look forward to a preliminary landscape plan. Provide some landscape planting at the back of sidewalk in front of the new wing, and look for any additional opportunities for landscape. applicant is to study the facade portions with the garage doors, to look at providing additional relief and or scale giving elements such as awnings, the canopy, etc. And then I guess the last item would be study any opportunities to provide some additional scale giving elements on the, for now, exposed property line wall, and bring back alternatives to the proposed plain block wall material, such as plaster or something that matches the existing structure more readily. And that's it.
Second. Any discussions? I actually have one discussion. The comment that was in the motion about studying the trash enclosure for additional locations. Do you have any concern by that? Because I'm studying it right now and can't find much of an options because of the way he laid it out. But other boards have concerns, and should he spend time in coming back with some different alternative because it affects his parking, which maybe affect his findings that would come back that he comes back to.
Was there a question?
There was a question: do the other board members feel that this trash location where it is right now is going to be satisfactory? One or two might feel like it can be relocated. Right now, at this point, you as the applicant feel this is the best location.
Reasons why we feel that way is originally French Press came in wanting to put a trash enclosure here that was rejected by the board over there, and then I thought one here too, right? We've got roll-up doors here, roll-up doors here. We have an entry point here, so the idea, we're doing shell core here, so we're trying to build in some flexibility. This could be split into two tenants or multi-tenanted. So I don't like the idea of putting that here because it impedes the functionality of what French Press is doing in their space there and the potentially blockage of storefront entry visibility for future tenants, because we have the ability to have a tenant here and a tenant at the street.
Mr. Chair, maybe if I could interject here, then maybe if the alternative to a different location would be that if it is in a location similar to where it is, it's got to be a really nice trash enclosure.
Really pretty one.
And integrated more with the entire building, so it's not, it's part of the overall architecture, such as a gateway element to the parking lot, something of that nature.
We haven't been to environmental services yet to talk about trash load requirements and things. So we'll do that as well and get that thing hopefully as small as we can.
Yeah, I liked Stephanie's comment about that extra foot putting in that landscape
Sure.
or somewhere on this side.
Yeah, or on either side.
And grow up that wall. Okay.
I mean, if it disappeared with landscaping,
It might be solvable, as a suggestion with a landscape,
Right.
combination of
Yeah.
landscape and architecture,
That's-
so that it when you're walking by, it doesn't seem like you're walking by the trash enclosure.
Right.
Under discussion, did we want to add anything about a finger in the parking area?
At this
It
point,
doesn't.
They're currently complying, so.
I think they're okay. Thank you. With that, if
you.
there's no other discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll see you when you're ready.
Thank you.
Oh, perfect time. We are skipping item 3 and moving on to item 4. Item 4 had a start time of 4:40, but we could start it at 4:25, which is right now, but he's not here. So we will take a 5-minute recess until the applicant comes. TV crew, are you guys ready? He's nodding his head, but I can't tell. We're good to go? I'm going to reopen the board meeting for Monday, August 20th. We are going to be reviewing item 334 West Mission Street. And if I have your name for the record and then your presentation.
Michael Gilson.
Okay.
The subject property is an R4 lot of a little over 7,500 square feet. According to the building department, it's allowable to have a duplex on the lot. My proposal is to take the original main house, which was built in 1910 and extensively modified.
I'm going to go to a site plan first, just so that we all can see where we're looking at. And then you can continue. We'll just do this together. You're at the corner of Mission and
Castillo
Street. And so you're this side of the Mission and Castillo. 101 Freeway, San Andreas, Modoc.
I'm on the mountain side of the freeway, right across from the gas station on Mission Street.
Okay. So let's just go to some site photos. Mission Street. So this is which is your house? Let's start with that one. Do you have a picture of your house from the front?
There will be.
There will be. Well, let's just cruise through that just so we have a visual memory of what we're looking at. Well, there's the sign.
And the house is the front of the house is right behind the sign.
Gotcha. Service station. Okay.
I can find it for you if you'd like.
Oh, go for it.
I just don't do well upside down.
Yeah, we all do.
Front of the house.
All right. Good job. So now let's go through. Now you can continue where you were. You were talking about.
The original property, I took it in foreclosure about 5 years ago. Tom Heath converted the garage to a legal non-conforming room. This portion on your left-hand side is permitted living area as a family room. The right-hand side is storage. So what I intend to do is take this building and attach it to the house so that there's no need for a 10-foot division between the two, and make this into a second unit, legal. It's already legal non-conforming. The city building department's fine with it, and that's what I intend to do with it.
And was there any change to the parking required by this?
The parking required currently has two covered. Because of the small size of the unit, under 600 feet, we're going to go with a one uncovered additional parking place, which was also agreeable to the planning department and the transportation department. So we have two covered, one uncovered.
Gotcha. This is the same. So this is how you're going to connect the two together with a more than 8 feet connection.
This is already existing and permitted in 1995. You have a laundry room, a closet. What we're going to do is enclose the breezeway between the two, turning part of it into an entry, part of it into a closet, and the entry will come into the bedroom. There's a secondary entrance into the rear.
Okay.
Okay.
And perfect. Elevation-wise. That's the front side. New elevations. Okay. Thank you. Is that it? Good enough?
Depends on what you want. I can tell you lots more, or I can be quiet.
You're perfect right now. I'm going to open up public comment. And seeing nobody here that wants to comment on your project and having no speaker slips, we will close public comment. Does staff have any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I could explain the requested zoning modifications that you need to comment on.
I didn't read that part. Sorry about that.
Sir, I can't quite hear you.
I was going to explain to the ABR the modifications that you are requesting.
Yes, sir.
One of them, that existing building that was the garage encroaches into the setback.
Okay.
So part of it was already permitted as habitable space, but the portion of that building that is storage space, changing from storage space to habitable within the setback requires a modification.
And there is 2 feet of that part of the structure intruding into the setback.
Okay. It's an interior change of use.
It's this portion where my finger's covering it.
And the other one is to do to add one uncovered parking space rather than provide 2 uncovered spaces, or 2 parking spaces for the new unit.
So typically, this development would require 4 parking spaces. Right. He is providing 3 parking spaces, of which 2 are covered and 1 is uncovered.
That's right.
Does staff have a position on the modification, or really?
Well, they told him he can proceed with the application, which he's done.
And we're here to comment on the architectural impacts of that requested mod as well as the proposed project. So with that, I'll return it to the board for questions of the applicant.
I have a question.
Keith.
Is the trellis existing over the carport?
Yes. And that was permitted as built by Tom Heath, the owner I took it in foreclosure from. You have a flat trellis here and then an angled trellis covering the walkway coming up to what will be the new entrance.
Okay, thank you.
Kirk.
It looks from the elevations that you're going to plaster that back building. Is that part of the proposal?
No, it'll be board and batten. Well, it's battens over T111 at the moment, and the battens over T111 will be continued.
Actually, are these the laundry room doors? Is that what this part of the building is? It's upside down, I know, it's against... The laundry room was already existing. That was a previous approval?
Previous approval, and this is the... This is the north side of the house, facing the mountains. And on the north side of the house, which is an interior yard visible from nowhere, there's an existing sun trellis, 2 sliding Marvin doors, and this is the back of the laundry room with 3 vents for ventilation. So these are air vents. They're facing the north against the adjoining property, and none of this can be seen from any place off the property except for the next door property.
But this already had its permit. This
Yes.
is already permitted the way it
This is permitted. This is all permitted. The only thing that's new here is the breezeway on this elevation. The only thing that's new is the 8 feet of breezeway wall. Beyond that, it's all as it was.
Great. That was my question.
Again, looking at the photographs, it does look like there's an existing door here that you're changing to a window. Just going by what I saw in the photos.
On the south side facing Castillo, there's an illegal door that was not permitted from Mr. Heath after getting caught and having to get it permitted as a partially habitable space, put in to facilitate renting it out. And so that door facing the parking area and facing Castillo is ugly.
Okay,
I'm gonna take- I'm gonna-
that was
yeah, I'm
my
gonna
only
take it-
question.
yeah,
So you're
I'm gonna
changing it
take
from a door to a window. That's
No.
what I'm seeing.
It is a door, and I'm going to put it back to the window that the plans call for.
He's returning it back to the permitted condition.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. And the other windows that are shown there, are those existing, or
Yes.
those are existing? Okay, thank you.
The only thing that's not existing is this 8-light door that's going to be the entry. And I want to use an 8-light because because this has walls butts up against the house, I want to get light into the entryway. Plus, we're setting this back about 2 feet, so it'll have shade, shadow, and dimension, and it'll be attractive. I mean, I don't sell things, so I like to make them look good.
All right. Any other comments from any other board members?
Question for staff. The new car parking spot, is that a modification as well? Is it within 3 feet? Is it allowed?
Well, yes, on the side it can be within 3 feet of the property line, and it just barely fits outside of the front setback.
But it meets all requirements without being a modification. The only modification is to have one parking place, which is, our contention is it's allowable due to the small size of the unit.
Perfect. If there are no other questions, then we'll go to comments.
I missed that question, or the response from, I believe, that Kirk asked about the stucco in the forward and bathroom and how it's presented on the drawing. Is it different than what is in the photographs?
Right, yeah, it's shown as copy, it's actually
Board-
T111 with battens covering the joints.
And it's going to stay that way?
Oh, it's going to stay that way.
Comments? We ready?
Go for it.
Mr. Chair, I don't see anything wrong with what you're proposing, but the way I read this, if I'm understanding the description, is this little building in the back was originally a garage, then was converted at one time for storage and other uses, and now it's being converted to a secondary residence. So you're going from a single-family residence with some area, detached area in the back, to a duplex. That's a big change. Even though it's not architecturally a big change, because you only have to make a little connection and do some interior remodeling, it's still a big change for the use of the property. Anyway, this is my comment.
Time out.
Anyway, the reason I'm mentioning that is I'm prefacing it to my comment, which is that T111 with battens covering the joints is really the cheapest, most inexpensive, and really not very attractive way to finish an exterior wall. And the front house is a gorgeous bungalow, and with horizontal siding and wood windows, mullions on the windows, very nice detailing or trim, etc. And the back is just looks like it's a tacked together little building. So my comment is that the finish, the exterior finish, the doors and windows, the trim, and other detailing on the exterior wall of that back building should be upgraded to be more in keeping with the quality of the front house.
Because I went over this.
Time out. Perfect. Thank you. We'll hold on to that thought. It's important. Next. It's good. Thank you. Comments from somebody else?
I'll jump in, Chair. Just a comment on the modifications. I think the one making habitable the area that's within the setback poses no aesthetic impact. So I think that's technical in nature, since you're dealing with all the existing mass. Likewise, with the parking, I think it's fairly standard to allow one parking space for a dwelling unit that's less than 750 square feet. So again, I think that doesn't really pose an aesthetic impact. I would like to see the pedestrian access to the new unit extended to the public way, so that people don't have to go through the parking area to get to the rear unit. It looks like that would be pretty simple. There's a fence there, so
easy.
That's pretty minor. Again, we're dealing with all existing mass, bulk, and scale, so I don't really have an issue with any of that. I would agree with Kirk's comments that it would be nice to integrate the exterior massing with the existing house in some manner, and whether that's material or color or combination, that would be beneficial. But
okay,
that's the only comment.
Any other board members?
I would agree, and I would also say...
In agreeing, can you be more specific?
Yes, I would agree with the material suggestion to change to the the facade that's viewable from the public way be upgraded to match the existing, and if colors are going to be changed, please bring those.
No, it and the house are all the same color.
Will they be changing and under the construction process?
Yep.
Okay.
Gary or Chris?
The modifications that the applicant have requested are, I believe, are technical in nature, and I don't have a particular problem with those. And I would agree with most of the board members that the siding or even what's indicated on the drawing is not really acceptable for the amount of upgrade that you're getting. You're getting a duplex here, so I think that it should match a little bit more closely the architecture of the existing bungalow. So I would look to see some siding as well as the fenestration should also match the architecture of the building. I know that you're changing some of the windows out, and I would hope that that would match the existing building.
Hold those thoughts. I'll give you a pen and make notes.
I would agree with Keith that having the entrance having its own identity out to the street would be a good bonus for this. That's pretty much it.
Anything, Chris? Okay. So if I have a show of hands on how many people think that the converted garage needs to have the exterior building material changed to match the front house, how many believe the exterior of this new duplex needs to have a material matching the original part of the house?
I didn't say matching.
Not matching, and again, not matching.
I just said upgraded so that it's similar in quality.
Similar in quality.
Can I make this easy for everybody?
Go for it.
What one person mentioned was the portion visible from the street.
Correct.
This is 4 feet away from the garage next door. No visibility, not going to exist. So what we're talking about is this area here. How about we vote that we match the exterior of the building on the front side facing Castillo, and it's done. And also that we agree to put this here, and it's done, and I don't have to come back.
Hearing that, we will. I'm glad to hear that you're amenable to that.
I don't care. I really.
The process, what we'll do is we'll give positive comments to the staff hearing officer about the project being held.
Okay.
You will hold the staff hearing officer a meeting, and if this is blessed and approved, then you will come back to ABR either at final or consent with all the details necessary to go into the building department. So you'll have to come in front of the board one more time, either at full board or consent. But right now, we'll put together a motion, and in the motion we will give positive comments to the staff hearing officer because no one had concerns about that. And some of the things in the motion will call out for the visible exterior elevation that we just talked about, and the other item will be called out was the pedestrian access, which you are amenable to. And because there's no concerns, it probably will go straight to consent.
Okay. One item that we got through, because this is in a historical zone, I had to go through and demonstrate that there was nothing original in this house. There's nothing original from 1910. 80% of the windows are already aluminum frame or Marvin sliders.
Looks like there's a variety.
Yeah, so there's nothing here that's, all the windows here are aluminum frame, and all of them, I believe, have the same 1x4 around them, still aluminum frame windows. And as are 80% of the windows in the house and/or doors. So the two are pretty comparable. There's nothing really original or savable or wonderful in most of the house. It's pretty.
You may.
You want me to respond? Can we just look at the photographs for a second?
There is some detailing with the trim and things like that around the windows
Mhm.
that would upgrade and dress up.
Yeah,
Anything
this-
that you would replace.
The proportions, the height,
Mhm.
and the type of window that's shown there, and the way it's detailed out with the sill and the trim,
Mhm.
it's very, very different. Even where there's a metal window, it's still, the appearance is very, very different from what's happening at that back building. And that's what I was noticing.
Painted a different color.
Well, no, it's not color. It has to do with the trim pieces that are used,
Well, let's
and
wrap
the
this-
detailing, and the siding as well,
I'm just curious.
and the quality of the window.
Let's wrap this up. I think we've spent enough time
Okay.
to go to the next level, but if we can have a motion from a board, and then we'll discuss it.
I'll make a motion to, with the indefinite continuance, could return to the consent calendar if the items are addressed.
Okay.
And, that the portion of the existing building that's in the setback and requiring a modification has no visual impact nor negative visual impact, and therefore is acceptable. Majority of the board feels that at a minimum, the portion of the rear building, the new that will constitute the new duplex, that portion which faces the street should match in quality and character the siding, the trim, and the proportions and types of windows on the south facade of the existing house.
Which is the front elevation right here? Is that the
Oh,
south?
I'm seeing, oh, no, I meant
South
this one.
facade.
This one. So I guess that's west.
South.
If this is north.
Southwest. Sunset's over there.
Let's say the Castillo-facing portion.
Thank you. Okay, anything else for the motion? The comment about the walkway?
Oh, and that the walkway to the back unit be extended to the sidewalk.
Path of travel to the new unit. Does someone want to second that? Are there any? Seconded by Stephanie. You'll get a chance. One moment. Any discussion from board members about the motion? Okay.
I just want to make sure that the other mod regarding the parking was covered, that it also...
Second mod.
There's two mods. One is having to
that
do
the
about...
parking mod also has no aesthetic impact.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Comment. Thank you.
And that's okay by both members. So you understand the motion?
Sure. When can I get on the consent calendar?
As soon as you get the staff hearing officer's thumbs up.
So
Are
let's
you-
clarify, this is a continuance indefinitely to the staff hearing officer.
It's an indefinite, correct, is what you said, and then returning back to the consent.
So you have to go have that staff hearing officer hearing, and if your modifications are approved, then you submit revised drawings to the ABR and just return to their consent calendar.
Okay. Who is the staff review officer on this?
Susan Reardon.
Susan? Okay.
I think you met with her staff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And does the consent calendar happen often?
Yes, consent meets every Monday.
Okay.
And with that, if there's no other discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You move to the next square.
Thank you.
And with that, I will end the meeting for Monday, August 20th.